author of the book, Clearing the Plains, Disease, Politics of Starvation, and Loss of Aboriginal Life. James Daschuk joining us here on the program today. Hi, good morning.
Hi, Wally. How you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here today.
Oh, thank you for asking.
Reading this book, but before we get to that, you actually are with the University of Regina.
Yeah, that's right. I work in the Faculty of Kinesiology and Health Studies at U of R.
You've put out a few books in the past. This one, by all means, I think is something that everybody should have. It's quite the resource and learning tool, I think, when it comes to the history that Aboriginal people were faced with back in the day.
Oh, well, thanks, Wally. Yeah, that was kind of my goal. That was my PhD dissertation when did I graduate? 12 years ago. But like you said, people are using it for university courses, and actually I've been working with high school teachers to adapt kind of the content of the story for younger people, so that people in high school can kind of learn that content as well.
You know, there's so much to learn about this book, and in fact, if people do pick it up, they're going to be blown away with by some of the accounts that they're going to come across when reading this book.
Yeah, in one sense, the truth is stranger than fiction. Like, I was actually quite surprised. A friend of mine once told me, you're never going to find a smoking gun for how Indigenous people lost their health in Western Canada. But actually, doing the research, it was government policy. John A. Macdonald said in the House of Commons, like in Hansard, this is the official record of the House of Commons, that we're keeping the people on the verge of actual starvation to keep the expenses down. Like, that kind of surprised me.
You mentioned research there, Jim. A lot of research went into this book, and we were just talking here before we went on that it's not something that you've just written over a year. This is actually, a 20-year journey there for yourself?
Yeah, so I first got a job at the University of Manitoba Medical School working for a physician epidemiologist, Q Young, and what he did was he knew that, the gap between Indigenous people and, white Canadians was so deep and so big with regard to health. He knew that the answer could potentially be found sort of in historical research. So as a young grad student, he sent me to the archives in Ottawa, to go look and see what we could find at Library and Archives Canada. And like I said, it's kind of a gold mine of human misery, for 120, 130 years, since the treaties are signed.
You talk about some of the stories in this book, and I was actually amazed, and this is just one that I'll share with our listeners. When you were talking about the outbreak of scarlet fever and measles that occurred amongst a large number of the Blackfoot people in southern Alberta. Mm-hmm. You read about the loss of life there, and what really had got my attention there is when their leader, Crowfoot, requested additional aid for help for his people, he was deemed a troublemaker and reprimanded. Yeah,
and something that didn't make it into the book that I've sort of found since is that once people were on reserve, and so this would be 1883 and on, if any chief had not even any pushback, requested, sometimes even just requesting an interview with the Indian agent or Edgar Dewdney, who was sort of in charge of the program, entire bands were cut off food for 8 days, and this would be men, women, and children. And the reason for doing that and being cut off food was just that somebody wanted to talk to, an authority with the government.
You've written this book and others in the past. What really had drawn you to tell the stories of the Aboriginal people?
Well, I think one of my teachers at University of Manitoba, 25 years ago or more, Doug Sprague, he was the historical consultant for the Manitoba Métis Federation on their claim, or their historical claim, to the river lots of the city of Winnipeg. And one thing as a young grad student I saw was that history can be used to inform, current political, current legal debates. And so I, sort of thought about this as I was starting school, and what's the most important issue we've got to deal with in Western Canada? Well, I think it's race relations. I mean, the terrible, relationship between the state, the institutions of the state, and First Nations and Métis people are probably the thing that's keeping us all down. If we could work those out, we could all move forward together.
and something that we're still working on today.
Yeah, for sure.
Jim, this book went on to get you a lot of great recognition. It is a national bestseller. You were the winner of some amazing prizes. And, just reading some of the, feedback from people who had picked up the book is just amazing. You do have to give yourself a pat on the back for doing such a great job.
Wally.
People, if they want to purchase their very own copy of Clearing the Plains, it is available. And you were saying that chapters in Saskatchewan there had been selling out of the book.
Yeah, so I'm surprised. The book's been out for a year and a half, and they're still selling. So they're in chapters coast to coast. So check it out.